SpongeBob SquarePants Mysteries Stage Fright. Chapter 10. So we had our first suspect, Bubble Bass. Now, I knew Bubble Bass. I'd seen him go to pretty extreme lengths to get what he wanted, and if anyone ever came between him and his regular custom-prepared Krabby Patty, a double triple bossy deluxe on a raft, 4x4 animal style, extra shingles with a shimmy and a squeeze, light axle grace, make it cry, burn it, and let it swim. Well, watch out. But he didn't really seem the type to climb up in a fly tower and drop a stage light, or sneak into a costume shop and ruin pieces of wardrobe. Still, he had a nice, clear motive: revenge on Martin Dorado. Bubble Bass obviously thought Dorado had done him wrong, and he was furious about it. Furious enough to ruin a show, though? I intended to find out. First, my partner and I had to check on his whereabouts at the time of the sabotage. That's just how it's done, so we did it. In a dark corner backstage, SpongeBob took his partner aside. "Sandy," he whispered, "we've got to go follow Bubble Bass." "Why?" Sandy asked. "There's no real evidence that he's done anything. I'd rather sweep the place with my new fingerprint scope I just whipped up in the costume department." She pulled out a device with flashing lights and lots of buttons that had clearly been fashioned from a sewing machine. "There's no time," SpongeBob insisted. "We've got to follow Bubble Bass right now. I've got a very strong hunch about this." "Okay," Sandy agreed. "But wait a minute. Aren't we supposed to be on duty here as head electrician and head cleaner? What if a bulb burns out or someone spills their bottle of soda pop?" SpongeBob considered this. "Well, even head electricians and head cleaners get breaks. Also, we'll sneak out. When we get back, we'll take care of every electrical or spill-related problems that might have happened while we were gone." "Got it," Sandy said. They quickly crept along the back wall of the theater and slipped out of the stage door. Busy rehearsing the musical number about the human girl who wanted a fishtail, the director, choreographer, and actors didn't notice them leaving. "There he is!" SpongeBob said once they were outside, pointing. Bubble Bass was not too far off, stomping away from the theater and out of the downtown area. He still looked mad. "Come on! We'll tail him to see where he goes! Just don't let him spot us!" "Don't worry," Sandy said, grinning. "I'll be sneakier than a masked cattle rustler on a midnight raid." Creeping from buildings to mailboxes to clumps of coral, the two investigators followed Bubble Bass through Bikini Bottom to an isolated house on a quiet residential street. He went in the front door, slamming it behind him. Bam! "I'm pretty sure that's Bubble Bass's house," SpongeBob said. "I wonder what he's up to in there. Planning his next act of sabotage, perhaps?" Sandy marched toward the house. "There's only one way to find out. Come on, SpongeBob." SpongeBob scrambled after his partner. When she noticed the front porch, she rang the doorbell. After a moment, the door opened a crack and a face peered out, frowning. But it wasn't Bubble Bass. It was his mother. A tall fish with a curly head of orange hair, a blue tracksuit, and oval glasses. Scowling, she said, "Whatever you're selling, we're not interested." "I assure you we're not selling anything, ma'am," SpongeBob said politely. "Is your son home?" "What do you want to know?" she asked suspiciously. "Is he in some kind of trouble?" SpongeBob smiled to put her at her ease. "Oh, no!" he chuckled. "No trouble at all. He recalled that Mama Bass always wanted her son to have more friends, or spend less time alone and to socialize. We're friends of his." "Friends?" she said, her face changing from suspicious to an open, friendly, welcoming smile. "Well, that's wonderful! Please come right in." She opened the door wide. SpongeBob and Sandy followed Mama Bass into the house. Would you like something to eat or drink? She offered politely. No, thank you, SpongeBob and Sandy said in unison. Well, my son's down in his room in the basement, she said, gesturing for them to sit down on a faded couch. Oh, just let him know you're here. They sat. Mama Bass crossed the room to a closed door. A sign tacked to the door read, Thou shalt not pass, this meaneth thou. When she tried the knob, it wouldn't turn. Locked, she muttered to herself. Typical. She put her face next to the door and shouted, Bubble, honey, there are two little friends here to pay you a visit. Come on upstairs. Tell them to go away, Bubble Bass yelled from the basement. I am now receiving visitors at this juncture. Mama Bass turned back to SpongeBob and Sandy, looking embarrassed. He's just a little shy, she explained. I'm sure he'll come up and say hello in a minute or two. My Bubble is a very good boy. My good little baby boy. SpongeBob actually didn't mind that Bubble Bass was coiling up in the basement. It would give them a chance to interview his mom. He decided to butter her up a little. Looking around, he saw a framed drawing of a whale hanging on the wall. Even though it wasn't very good, SpongeBob commented, That's a beautiful drawing! Isn't it? Mama Bass said, beaming. My little baby boy drew that! He's a very talented artist. That's Wonder Whale. He just loves Wonder Whale. I suppose he does his drawing down in the basement, SpongeBob said. Yes, Mama Bass affirmed. He calls it his studio, or his castle. Has he been down there all day today? Sandy asked innocently, knowing perfectly well that he hadn't. Shaking her head, Mama Bass said, No, he just got home a couple of minutes ago. He went over to that Triple theater to give the director a piece of his mind. Based on the mood he was in, I don't think it went very well. She flopped down on an overstuffed lounger. Boop! Sandy wondered exactly when Bubble Bass had left the house and gone over to the theater. Had he been there when the stage light had fallen? Had he had time to vandalize the costumes? And had he been there earlier when real swords and cannons had been swapped for harmless props? Oh, your son was at the theater? We were there earlier today, but we didn't see him, Sandy said. That's too bad, Mama Bass said. I don't think he was there very long. Ever since that fancy big-time director who thinks he's so smart he tried to Bubble Bass's script, he's been pounding down in the basement, blubbering like a baby. This went on for days. He refused to come out, except to grab the meals I cooked for him, and he didn't go anywhere. So finally, I'd had enough. What'd you do? SpongeBob asked, his eyes widened at the last statement. Maybe Bubble Bass had gotten up to some mischief at the theater herself. Mama Bass, I mean. She patted her hair and pushed her glasses up her nose. I did what any good mother would do. I banged on the basement door and yelled, Bubble, you come up out of that basement this instant. Then you march yourself over to that theater and give that mean old director what for. At first he refused, but I just kept banging on the door, so eventually he came out. She sighed. I never should have let him install that lock. So let me get this straight, SpongeBob said, leaning forward on the couch. Bubble Bass stayed down in the basement for days, not going anywhere until today. Mama Bass nodded her head vigorously. That's right, not until I made him. And even when he wasn't out of the basement for very long, seems as though he just went downtown to the theater, said his piece, came straight back here and locked himself in the basement again. I don't think he was gone much for long over half an hour. She sprang to her feet, strode over to the basement door and pounded on it. Bubble! Come up and see your friends right now or else no supper for you! There was a pause. Then they heard heavy footsteps as Bubble Bass trudged up the basement stairs. The lock turned and the door opened. Light reflected off Bubble Bass's glasses as he peered out from the dark. Who are these so-called friends, anyway? He saw the two guests sitting on the couch. SpongeBob SquarePants from the Krusty Krab. That's right, Bubble Bass, SpongeBob said cheerfully. Come on out and join the party! And that scientist squirrel, Bubble Bass said confused. The one who lives in a land tree under the dome? That's me! Howdy, Bubble Bass, Sandy said with a wave. Wait a minute, Bubble Bass said, remembering. Didn't I just see you two at the theater? Standing on the edge of the stage watching me as that evil director humiliated me? Mama Bass looked puzzled. You two just saw Bubble at the theater? I thought you said you didn't see him. Sandy looked uncomfortable. Well, come to think of it, maybe we did see him for a minute or two. You know how dark theaters are. We may not have recognized him. But now I remember. Yes, I guess we did see him after all. What were you two doing at the Drippy Lane Theater? Bubble Bass demanded. Are you associated with that horrendous musical? Working for that thief? Oh, well, kind of, yeah, SpongeBob said awkwardly. But we just started today. I'm the head cleaner and Sandy's the head electric... Ouch! Bubble Bass screamed, pointing at the front door. Out of my house! Leave these premises immediately! Get out, I say unto you! SpongeBob and Sandy had no choice but to get up off the couch and hustle out the front door. As they went, Mama Bass whispered, He's just in a little mood, that's all. You be sure to come back soon for another visit. My cute little bouncing baby boy needs friends. She closed the door. Even with the door shut, they could still hear Bubble Bass inside hollering, Why did you let those lowlifes into the house, Mother? They've come to steal more of my precious ideas. They said they were your friends, honey, Mama Bass explained. I just thought it might be nice for you to spend a little time with... Those two are not my friends, Bubble Bass shouted. Anyone who has anything to do with that show is my mortal enemy. As they walked away from the house, Sandy said, Well, that was uncomfortable. SpongeBob shrugged. Detecting isn't about being comfortable, Sandy. It's about digging up the facts, and we've got some good ones. You mean like his mom saying that he never left the house for days until just before he went over to the theater today? Exactly! If Bubble Bass was pouting in his basement all that time, he couldn't have been over at the theater trying to ruin the show. He's got an alibi. Sadie furrowed her brow thinking, You know, SpongeBob, it seems to me we're just running around willy-nilly asking questions. Shouldn't we be gathering evidence, doing analysis, collecting DNA samples? SpongeBob smiled. Oh, Sandy, that's not what detecting's all about. It's not? Then what is it about? Sandy asked. Putting on his hard-boiled detective face, SpongeBob said in a low voice, Instinct, sister. Hunches. Following your gut. Sadie looked doubtful, but decided to get back to the case. So, Bubble Bass isn't the culprit. Well, I don't know if I'm ready to completely cross him off the list of suspects yet, SpongeBob said, mulling it over. But it doesn't look like it. Stay tuned for Chapter 11 coming up soon.